Hey guys, I'm here. I made it. I'm a little late, so I do apologize. I want to just first start out, and I want to allow a few people just to get on before I really get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today. But if you can hear me, right, and if you can see me clearly, I want you to just jump on there and say, hey, I can hear you, you're good. I'm excited about this. This group has been awesome by offering some free virtual education with no strings attached. You know, a lot of times in our business, everyone's out there trying to make money and try to do all these things, but these people have given of their own time. These are stylists that have worked hard to plan this for everyone and for everyone in this group, and not only people in this group, but also people that you're adding to the group, right? So the thing is that when we're dealing with us as stylists, we tend to try to compete with each other, and really, we're truly better together. We're truly better when we're united. We're united front, that we support each other, and in the times that we're living in, like what we're living in right now is totally like crazy. Like I never thought that I would ever live to be a day where I could not leave my house safely. And it is crazy that we're living in the corona, COVID-19, like all the craziness. You can't touch nothing, can't find toilet paper, can't find Lysol wipes, can't wipe your butt, it's just, this is crazy times that we're living in. And I never thought that we would ever live in the time like this. Like, and what's happening right now, we're going to find in history books. It's crazy. But I do want to start off and introduce who I am. Now, first and foremost, I talk a lot with my hands, okay? So forgive me for that. As most hairstylists know, we're ADD and we're like squirrels. You know, we bounce off the walls and we go all over the place. So my goal here today is to really get you in a position, in a place where when it comes to color theory, you'll know exactly what you need to do. And I don't want you to kind of blank out because you're thinking about, you're thinking about things like, I've already done this before, I know this already, I understand what this is. You don't want to think like that. When you're educating and you're learning and you're sitting there and you're taking the time to listen to something, you definitely want to just forget everything that you know and then allow room to really receive and to like see things that you probably didn't see things the way that you did. I remember the school that I went to, cosmetology school, it was basically you just learn. They taught you how to pass the test. Let's be honest. I was about to butter that up and make that seem good, but let's be honest. I paid $18,000 to pass a test, okay? They don't teach you the things that you're going to need, that when you get a color correction in your chair, that you know what to do, that you have the confidence to be able to knock that out and know, I know what the color wheel is, I know what to do. They didn't give you that confidence because that's not what they focused on. They focused on getting your license and getting out. Pay me $18,000 for a piece of paper. That was my experience. Now, I know there's a lot of colleges and technical colleges and things like that do things so much better. And if you had a better education, support that 100%. That is awesome. But in my experience, I didn't have that. So now that we've got a little bit of time and we've allowed you to kind of jump on, I do want to say that if you do have questions, I need you to push that to the end, okay? Because I'm going to go at the very end and I'm going to just kind of scroll through just the most recent comments and go through some of the questions, okay? I'm not going to be able to have the time to sit there and scroll all the way to the top to find your question that you did 20 minutes ago, okay? So just keep in mind, if you do have a question, copy and paste it on your notes, write it down, whatever, and then that way you won't forget it, and then that way we can address it. If I don't address it on this live, I will go back to the comments and I will address your questions and any issues, questions, whatever that you have, okay? So first off, let me introduce who I am. Like, who is this lady? So my name is Meredith. I am born and raised in Bossier City, Louisiana, and representing 318. If you hear that country, thing, I don't think I have an accent or that I'm country. But when I hear other people talk, I'm like, wow, they have an accent. So I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing about me. So please forgive me. If I talk fast, just know this is going to be on replay, okay? You're going to be able to have access to this video as long as you stay a member of this group. So you're good. You're going to be able to see this over and over and over again, okay? I am a stylist, an independent stylist. I do not own my own salon. I do work in a suite style salon, so we all have our own individual suites. I've been there for about 9 years, working under the same person, Nikki Hardiman. If you're watching, shout out, whoa, whoa, whoa. I am a 6-figure stylist, and I work 4 days a week. So in that, I hit 6 figures about 4 years ago in my business, and I haven't stopped since. And we're only getting better and better. And I'm trying to be in a position, in a place where that I can educate more, because I have, let's see, 15 years in the business, and I'm still learning. You know, that's the thing, is we never quit learning. We never stop actually going through and figuring out, hey, you know, I could probably do this better. I could know this better. I could hone in on this and really get this craft and critique it, right? So as far as this group goes, the back room, they have established awesome education for you. If you go to the units, you can go back and look at all the education that they've already done for the last week. And this current week, I'm the first one that we're starting out, starting out the virtual education. And I'm excited about it because, for one, guys, I haven't talked to nobody but my husband and my dogs. Okay? So quarantine has got me crazy. Let's see, how many days have y'all been quarantined? Because, you know, Louisiana was a little behind when it came to shutting everything down. So I'm on 9 days right now. And of course, the president just extended it to April 30th. So that's putting us back into the salon around the 1st of May. So it's okay. We're going to make it. We're going to be fine. We're going to be crazy when it's time to go back, and you're going to make all your money, and you're going to be able to pay your bills. Okay? I promise, guys. Like, it's all about perspective and how you look at it. And how awesome is this that you can literally take this time, and instead of like just popping on random things, that you're honing your craft, right? So you're doing all the things right now to establish that when you go back to that salon, you're going in with guns blazing, right? You're going in with new tools, new education, new things that you didn't know, and even things that you did know, but that you kind of brushed up on, that you kind of had that, you know, like for instance, and I'm going to say this, and if I say this, I do not want to hurt your feelings, and I'm not saying it to hurt your feelings. But I remember, okay, so when this corona first started coming out, everyone was doing the certification for barbicide, because we were trying to give our clients peace of mind to say, hey, come get your hair done. Like, we clean, people. Like, we clean. Like, come on, get your hair done, bring the money in, whatever. And it's those certification that solidifies peace with people, right? People establish that they feel that, okay, this person is aware, they know. And so just like when you're doing certifications, and not even things that you're just getting education on, is these are things that you're allowing, that you have the confidence to speak about. If you educate yourself in something, you now have the actual, I guess, the boldness and the courage and the confidence to say, hey, like, I know, like, I kind of know about this. So my goal here is to make sure that you have confidence, and that you know, and that you will take all this information that I'm about to give you, because it's science exploded. I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible, and that way you can understand it, break it down, make it practical that we can use behind the chair. And in that, make sure, what I want you to do, if you are watching replay, I want you to do #replay. And then if you are in here and someone added you to the group, I need you to tag that stylist right now in the group. So I need you in the comments below, I need you to tag their name. So whoever added you, just tag their name right there, because that way that the group will know who actually has invited, and then they're going to do like a big drawing at the end of the virtual education, okay? So just make sure that you do that. I'm trying to think anything else. Oh yes, okay, so right now we're in the middle of moving, okay? So I'm trying to give all this preface stuff, so if anything looks hood or ghetto or whatever, that I'm like, I'm trying to think. Okay, so we're in the middle of moving right now, and because I love you guys so much, I stopped everything that I was doing so that I could do this for you. And I'm not saying that so you can rub my back and give me a cookie or be like you're the best person in the world. I'm doing that because I love education so much that I want to give my part. I want to do my part to be able to impart the things that I know, the things that I've learned, the things that I can help you along your journey. And even if you have more years experience than I do, or you have less years experience, that part doesn't matter. My main thing is that I want you to be able to walk away from color theory, and even I'm going to talk a little bit about color corrections, and that way that you know what you're doing, that you have the confidence and that support, right? That you have the push you need to not hesitate when making decisions behind the chair. And that's our goal here today, okay? So if you see, I'm going to have my husband pan over here on this thing that I created. Okay, now I will say, I'm an artist with hair, but drawing, I'm not, okay? So when we get to the point where you're going to be like panning on this side over here, don't judge my artistry, okay? And for one, uhaul.com did not they did not sponsor this. It's because this is the only way that you'd be able to see it, because me not really knowing what the world that I was even drawing and doing, I was like literally winging this because I was doing it all on trying to make sure that I could give you guys visual, because as hairstylists I know that we are visual people, is in that, guys, it's too small. Like, let's be honest, I was going to put it up and I was going to have it all professional, but it's small. So we had to bring in the boxes from U-Haul, and we had to stack it up like this. So this is what you get, and this is what you're going to have, okay? So if you're still with me, then I appreciate you still here. So now let's get right on to Color Theory 101. We don't waste any more time. We have awesome education the rest of the day. We have Stephanie's going to be doing razor cutting at 5, and then Bethany, I think at 1, she's going to do some highlighting around the face and things like that you can see. Okay, so let's get right into it. You see my little hand here? That's my little pointer. So I don't have to move. So I can move you over. So first we're going to talk about really down into what the primary colors are, the secondary colors are, and then we're going to talk about the tertiary, which is I'll explain that in just a second. Let me not get ahead of myself. But when it comes to the melanin in the hair, we have two types. You have eumelanin, which is your black and brown, and then you have the pheomelanin, which is your red to yellow zones, right? Those are going to be your lighter zones. And so when you're dealing with someone with natural, let's talk about natural level, not colored level, but talking about their natural level. Their natural level, you're going to be able to see, you'll be able to know what type of melanin is in the hair. And then when you acknowledge what that natural level is and you know what you're dealing with, this is where you're going to be able to understand, okay, the light to darkness, and then what pigments are going to be brought out when I lift the hair, because these are called underlying pigments, and we'll deal with that in a second. But if you see this randomly, it's because I talk with my hand. I'm gonna scratch myself. So y'all, science is not science is sometimes can be boring for people who are not interested in it. So I'm going to try to make this as fun and practical as we can, okay? So I want to go ahead and let's talk about our primary colors, okay? So let me extend this a little bit so if you can see. So your primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. These primary colors are colors that you cannot mix to make. So you cannot mix anything to make blue, and you can't mix anything to make yellow, and you can't mix anything to be red. These are your primary colors, okay? So now let's go to secondary. Secondary colors are your purple, orange, and green. These come out because you can mix these colors to make this, okay? So that's what that means. Then you can for tertiary, are when you add your primary and your secondary and you get your tertiary. That's where you get your yellow green, you get your yellow orange. That's where you get these little things. This is probably super small, and I didn't think about it, so don't judge my color wheel. But this is where you're getting that, that problem where when you're having like this yellow orange, that's a tertiary color, because you can mix the yellow and you can mix the orange, which is your primary and secondary, and you can get those colors to make what you want, okay? So when you're dealing with these colors, you need to acknowledge what those colors are and what you can and cannot do to make things. This is where you're going to be able to do your formulas and be able to formulate. Now, let's go on to tones, okay? And I want to make sure, I want to look that I'm making sure that I'm covering all my bases. So neutral colors are created when all three primary colors are mixed together in equal parts, okay? So when you have all these colors mixed, that all the colors are represented, that's where you're going to get a neutral zone where you're going to be able to neutralize the underlying pigment when it comes to hair. Okay, so let's go ahead and address our tones. If you have questions about these and what they are, keep the comment and just kind of paste it somewhere, and then that way we can come back to it, okay? So your tones. You obviously have warm and cool tones. So with a warm and cool tone, you want to make sure that when you're dealing with any type of underlying tone, and let's give you an example. Okay, if you're going to lift someone, and let's say they're like a level 6, and they want to get to like a beige blonde. So in that level 6, I'm going to have a little bit of warmth, but I'm not going to have to combat it too much, right? So if I want a beigey kind of cool zone, I know that when I lift up, I'm going to have a little bit of that red, but it's going to be more into this orange and yellow zone than it would be the red. Because we know when it comes to warm tones, red tends to be on the darker pigments, like your level 1 to level 4, things like that. And your cool zones are going to be really at your level 7 and above. You know, your 7, your 8. So you're talking about blue, green, and purple. These are going to neutralize warm, and warm is going to neutralize like the coolness, right? So if like the rain, a lot of times we have people who want the cool, they want the kind of underlying cool tones. But there are those people, those rare people that do still want warmth, that do want the natural underlying pigment of their hair, which, you know, when you're dealing with any kind of undertone of this, we know what to cancel out with, okay? So so in that, let me give you an example. If you were dealing with let's say we're dealing with a situation where this happens to us all the time. We have someone who is a level 1, 2, who wants to be silver. How many clients do we get with Pinterest, Instagram, and they show us this god-awful silver that we're all over? Raise your hand, do an emoji, raise your hand. I got my little hand. Raise your hand if you're over the silver. I'm over the silver. I do it all the time, and I'm over it. That is not natural hair color. That's not normal. I'm so over the silver. So in that, I want you to look like when it comes to warm and cool, we have to know what is complementary to the actual client, okay? So when we're doing a consultation and we're like, okay, this chick really wants some silver hair, but let's see if we can get her in that in-between, in that middle, so we can keep her hair healthy. So we do a thorough consultation, correct? So in our consultation, we basically tell her that it's not going to happen. And if you don't have $500, it's not going to happen. And that's basically what it's going to be. Because here's the thing, you have to charge for what you're worth. And if you are not charging, okay, this is totally off this color theory. You like my little hand? This is totally off color theory, and this is just a little sidebar. Is if you are not charging, let's say you do this 4 or 5 hour color correction, and you get to the register and you're getting to check them out, and you're like deducting money because you're like, oh my God, she's not going to pay this. They're not going to pay this. This is good. This is too much. That means that you don't have the confidence in your skill to charge what you're worth. Okay? So when you have that little nudge, you're like, oh my gosh, she's not going to pay this. People will pay it because they're going to like their hair. They're going to enjoy their hair. They're going to love their hair. And if they don't have the money, then guess what? You will get more clientele that will be around the money that you need to make versus you just giving handouts to people who can't afford you. It is that simple. It is that simple, people. Like when you get back in that chair, you better be like, I am worth a lot. And in that, I get that there is cities. I get that there's small, like country, little towns, whatever. My city is not huge. Bossier is not a huge area. But color corrections, I charge $100 an hour. Because guess what? I built my business on that. My brand is color correction. I mean, that is how I have clients in my chair today. Because I was known around town to correct correcting bad hair jobs, whether it was at home or was it done by another stylist in town. So in that, if I know that people are looking to me because I've branded myself that way, if you know that people are looking to you for a specific something, then charge for it. But don't charge if you don't have the confidence and the courage and the boldness to charge what you're worth. Okay? You are all worth more than what you're charging right now. And if you have that little gut feeling that you're like, oh my God, I can't charge her. I just spent 5 hours and I have to charge her $500. Yeah, you charge her $500. You absolutely. And add a little extra to it, especially if she was rude, if she was mean. I call it on a little invoice. I'd be like, $50 more. You was horrible. You were horrible in the chair, and you were mean. You was ugly. You was rushing me. You know y'all got clients like that. Don't play. Y'all got clients like that, and you really want to be like, I'm about to like out charge or really just like overcompensate and say, and they'll never come back. Or even in a consultation, you're like red flag, and you're like, I don't want this client. So then you overthink. Like, let's say the bill would be $250, and let's say you kind of add a little bit more and you bump it up because you want to kind of talk her out of it, and then she's like, oh, great. When's your next appointment? That's your fault. What you should have did was been honest and told her that you don't think that you're going to be a good fit for her and that you won't be a good fit. And that's okay. Okay? I know. And if you're laughing, put a little laughing emoji so I know you're laughing. So when I go back and look over these things that, obviously y'all think that I'm funny. So at least they'll kind of boost my ego. Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about how to neutralize something, okay? So we have my handy dandy hand. So if we want to neutralize something, if we have too much red, the color wheel, and don't mind the color wheel, because I totally kind of messed this up now that I'm looking at it, that normally you should be able to go across, and obviously I did not do that. Because normally you should be able to go across and be able to look at what is across there to be able to truly say what does that. So don't focus on that part. So too much red, we obviously know that if we do not want red present in the hair, then we're going to make sure that we take the green, our ash base, to neutralize it to make it brown. If we have too much copper and orange, we know that we need to take our blue and we need to neutralize it and make it our brown. If we have too much violet, and let's say we want to neutralize it, we neutralize it with gold. For instance, this is a great example of people who are overly saturated with, like, when you tone silver, of course we use like the purple, and you want to make sure that you're, with the purple, you want to make sure, like sometimes with silver, it gets very muddy and like it oversaturated with certain things. So we have to just make sure that we're doing the necessary things. So if we want more gold back in the hair and we want it to look more warm, you're definitely going to have to neutralize that purple and put yellow and put some form of gold in there, so that way that you can kind of see that, and not only even taking it to brown, but just taking it to a neutral zone. So that way hey, if I'm missing gold in the hair, guess what? I need to put that back in there. If we're like overly silver and overly saturated with something, then we have to find the missing component and put it back in the hair. That's where you're getting the tertiary colors to bring the hair back to its natural form. Okay? So in that, we've got to know the difference between the warm, the cool, and the neutral tones. So you can have a level 10 blonde, warm, cool, and neutral. And you totally can. If you need examples, I can totally post those for you, so then you can see it side by side, what a warm blonde obviously looks like. And I'm talking about a warm level 10. I'm not talking about warm that you didn't pull them up enough. A warm level 10 is still light. You're still at a level 10, but you're literally at that place where it has that undertone of warmth, right? But you're not warm. I'm trying to explain this practically, and if you can understand what I'm trying to say, like nod your head, send an emoji, or do something, because I want you guys to get this. Because when you look, like for instance, we can look at someone's hair and we can see, hey, that has a little bit of a gold to it. Even though it's bright, even though it's light, the gold and that yellowish tone, sometimes we don't want to get rid of. Sometimes you want to enhance that depending on the complexion of the person, depending on the color of the eyebrows, all those things take into consideration when you're dealing with someone who wants a certain tone. Not everyone needs to be bleached out and put a silver toner on it, right? Like this is not, that's not coloring hair. Like for instance, and I'm going to say this and I don't want you guys to be mad at me. I'm very known to be very blunt, and my bluntness is not to be offensive. My bluntness is to help and to educate. Okay, so please know that I'm coming from a very positive place. Coloring hair is not just bleaching it and toning it. Okay, anyone can bleach hair and tone it. Your clients at home can bleach it and tone it. Okay, so you're not saying something when you can just bleach something and then just throw whatever color or toner you want on it. That is not a color specialist. That is not a person who knows color. Okay, now I'm saying that from a very sweet spirit, so don't get mad at me. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just trying to help you learn what color theory is. This is what's going to keep people in your chair, because you're going to be able to produce things without having to bleach the life out of someone's hair where they have no porosity left. They have no, like, the cuticle is just blown open and no color will stay, no toner will stay. They're damaged, dry, their hair looks horrible. And the thing is you try so hard, because clients will pressure us to get a certain look. They'll pressure us to say, well, hey, I saw that you got this person's hair to this person, and I saw this transformation, and can I get my hair that blonde? And as you all know, we have to educate our clients and letting them know that not every transformation is going to be the same. Not every person is going to be able to have the same thing, because all of us, and we all know, the natural level of hair releases the underlying pigment. So if you have a level 1 to 4, even to a 5, your underlying pigment is going to be red. So let's go to our chart over here, handy dandy. And y'all, don't judge me, okay, on this, because I tried real hard and I worked real hard on this, even though it does not seem, it's real small. So we've all seen this before. This is a chart that we all know. But I'm going to kind of give you an example when you're dealing with like just the levels of hair and what pigment and undertone is existing without you even lifting it, right? So for instance, your black and brown and your dark browns are going to always have some type of blue and violet undertone. Like that is existing in the shade. That's not when you lift it. That's just whenever that is what is there. When you're dealing with, you're going up higher and you're dealing with a dark blonde to medium blonde, you're going to have your orange and your yellow present, right? Because those are going to be your undertones that go and coincide and that go with that level, okay? So exposed undertone when lifting, right? So even at a 10, right? We're still at a pale yellow that you still have to address how to neutralize that. So you could be at a pale yellow, and if you want to neutralize the base, of course, we're going to put violet because that's opposite of the color wheel. But if I wanted to enhance the pale yellow, then I would use gold. And in that, I would use what the natural undertone that she lifted to. Now, I'm not saying leave her yellow, but there is, like I was telling you, a level 10 and a gold that can be present in the hair, because at level 10, you can still have a warm blonde. So we always hear about neutralizing bases, but we never really hear about enhancing the base. And this is something that is, when, let's say even at the level 6 that I was talking about earlier, when we want to enhance that base, for instance, sometimes our level 6s, the light browns, they maybe don't want to be super pale yellow. But what happens when we go in there on that level 6, we know that the orange and red is going to be present in the hair. When we're lifting, we're going to see that. But if I wanted to neutralize that and make it more into like a caramel or more of a softer brown, then I would neutralize that with the blue and green. But if I wanted to enhance the base, I could use the copper red and to do that. And even if you're dealing with someone who has virgin hair, you have to know when you have someone sitting in your chair, you have to address those things. First, you have to address the actual natural level of the hair. If the person presents himself as virgin hair, we know this is very rare in our business. Very rare am I ever gonna have a person who has done nothing to their hair. So if I have a virgin in my hair, if I have a virgin in my chair that has done nothing to their hair previously, then I know that do I have to always go to the bleach? Depending on what she wants to do, the bleach is not always the answer. We can do color, we can lift with color, depending on what color line that you're using, and you have high lift colors, you have all types of things. For instance, if you have someone in your chair that has, and it all depends, and I'm going to go through this in just a second, it all depends on the density of the hair and all that of what product that you're going to use. But if someone has thin density and they have very fine hair, and the diameter of their hair is very fine, you are not going to have to blow that cuticle up by bleaching it out and then toning on top of it. If someone was like, let's say a level 6 with fine hair, and she had, let me try to give you an example, and let's say she wanted more of a coppery red, that she didn't really want a blonde, you wouldn't necessarily even have to use bleach. You could totally use a higher color. Like you could even use like a high lift color with a certain tone. I know there are certain color lines out there that have like no level of a high lift. It's just like a high lift and it has like a tone to it, like a high lift copper and a high lift whatever. Just know that if you're going to use a high lift, you're dealing with someone with a level 6 and below, you're going to get warmth. You're not going to be able to have that kind of lift when you're dealing with something so dark. Okay, so you're just gonna have to know what you're dealing with and have the best education to be able to get you to the end result. And this is where you're gonna be able to educate your client and say, hey, like, let's say you're level 6, right? And we're not gonna tell our clients you're level 6 because they could care less. But say, look, your hair is medium brown and, you're kind of wanting to get to like a soft kind of brown, like a little bit of a blonde, but not too crazy. Nothing that, most now everyone wants to be super color melted. No one wants any well, I say that, but there's still people who want that prominent money piece and blondes and things like that. But for those people who don't want the pronounced color, but they do want a little bit of shift change, don't go to the bucket of bleach. Go to color. Try to preserve their hair, and don't always, as stylists, don't just bleach and tone, because let me tell you, bleaching and toning, anyone can do. Anyone can do that. And when you're a color specialist and you're talking about, hey, you're charging these people this amount of money, whatever the amount of money you're charging, yeah, you're not going to have the confidence because you don't have the color theory, the knowledge to know what makes what and what makes something up of that, right? So if I want to get to the tertiary colors, which is your in-betweens, which is your primary and your secondary colors combined, I need to know what pigment is missing in the hair so that way I can restore natural pigment. It's the same thing that when you're going down from a level 10 and someone wants to be black. It's the same thing as you have to present all those tones to bring those tones back into the hair, because we know when you lift hair to a level 10, you're removing the pigment from the hair. That's what we're doing. When we're bleaching it and these people want to be white and silver, we're removing the natural pigment out of the hair so that way we can then get it. That's why it's so hard for blondes. I know I'm trying to go everywhere, but I have a point, and I'm getting to the point, is when you're dealing with someone who has naturally dark hair, blonde hair is going to look different on them. And that's what you have to explain to people. Versus someone who has level 7 and above hair, we all know level 7 is like the best color blonde to do, because it's so bright and it's so light and it's so it looks so bomb. And then you've got the person who comes in there with a level 3 or 4, and they want that color and they can't get that color. You know why they can't get that color? Is because their natural pigment won't allow them to get that color. Because even at someone who's level 4 or 5, your blonde is going to look different on someone who is dark hair lifting than someone who's level 7 and you're lifting. It's going to happen. You're not a miracle worker. You're not a magician. And you're not going to be able to change the natural pigment of someone's hair. You can't do it. But what you can do is educate your client in that chair, get them on the same page as you, and that way you can go into the service with confidence, because that way you won't have to they're not trying to get you to be like, oh, I hope it's light enough. Like, you know that client that's at the shampoo bowl and they're like, ooh, what does it look like? I hope it's light. Oh, I just can't wait to be blonde. They're basically testing you. Okay, and they're doing that because they want to know, hey, how blonde did this stylist get me, right? How blonde, how talented. Clients will rate you on how talented you are based on how high they can lift you. They don't care about if you're preserving the cuticle of their hair. They don't care that if you're, keeping the hydration, that you're keeping their cuticle in place, that you're not blowing and killing their medulla, which is the inner cuticle. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be too scientific. But you're not frying their hair. And then you got that client in the chair and you just want to slap them. Like, that's why I want to take this little hand and you just want to be like beep, 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 beep over their forehead when they're at the shampoo bowl, right? Because it's like, I know what I'm doing and I'm trying to keep your hair healthy. And the minute that you fry their hair, guess what? They're going to blow you up on social media and they're going to talk about you. Okay? So what I will say is this: don't you let anybody, I don't care who they are. You see this little hand? I don't care who they are. You don't let them pressure you. Okay? Don't let them pressure you when it comes to this, because when it comes to hair, this is your bread and butter. This is how you pay your bills. And if someone cannot respect what you're doing in your chair to keep their hair healthy, or want to keep the color wheel in perspective, then you don't need them. You don't need their money. You don't need their complaints. You don't need all of that. But I would say all of that can be avoided if you educate the client in the chair, and you can and do it in a way that they can understand. That we're not talking above them. Sit down in front of them and explain to them that when you're lifting someone who has dark hair, the blonde hair is going to look different than someone who doesn't have dark hair, right? So just know that their color is going to look a little different. It may not look like the picture that you send me, but this is where we're going to go, and it's going to be light for you. It's going to fit your complexion. And then talk about how beautiful they are. I mean, I'm not saying faking it, because let me not get myself in trouble. But when it comes to clients, the one thing that you need to do is always coax their ego, because that's really what they want. They come to you because they want to feel good. So in that, just tell them, hey, I can go by the guideline of what I know that's going to keep your hair safe. But look, we can lift it to a point that it would enhance your eyes. I mean, you have beautiful eyes. And let's really enhance that, and we'll put a cut with it. And with the cut, we can actually just kind of give you a little bit of face framing, so that way it frames your face and it will really enhance all your best features. If you don't have if someone doesn't have best features, like we all know, let me not be mean, but there are people out there that is the struggle, okay? And those are not people, you don't want to take pictures of them, because sometimes the hair doesn't turn out the way that we want it. We have a thing in our head that we visualize what it's going to be, and it doesn't, because then the client will lie to you, tell you that they've never colored their hair. So when you have those situations and those things coming about, just know that it's all about how you present something to someone, because when you present it in a nice gift, and then always tell people to sandwich negativity with something good, like a sandwich. So if there's something negative that you got to say something that's disappointing that the client's not going to like, just sandwich something really nice in between. And what they're going to remember is they're going to remember the outside, not necessarily the inside. So that way you're not constantly saying, really? You really think you're going to get from a level 1 to a 10 today? It's not, we know that. We know as stylists, we can't do that. And we cannot, we can't get mad at the client for bringing that to us. We have to be able to take the situation and take that consultation and take that service, and you spin it to where you're going to feel comfortable, and then you're going to be able to do the service, okay? So this is totally not what color theory is about, but that was free that you can do. So let me give you another example of this, and then we're going to talk about porosity and diameter and things like that, and then we'll be done. We'll be wrapping up, okay? So let's go back to our levels really quick. If I'm going to do, let me give you another example. If I have someone with dark brown hair, okay, this is a great example. And let's say they do want to be silver, and we know that we're going to have to do a couple of sessions on them. We know that with a dark brown, that the red violet is undertone naturally. So in that, if I'm going to expose it by lifting it, by bleaching them, and even at a 20 volume, developer with whatever color line that you are using, that you're still going to be able to pull that medium red tone. You're going to, let's say you use 20 volume and you're going to get to like a level 6, right? And they are at an orange red. So we know neutralizing it, we're going to have to put a blue green. And if we want to enhance it, we're going to put a copper red. These are all things that you're going to be able to find when you're doing this color wheel up here, right? That color wheel up here is going to give you, when you go the opposite, you're going to be able to see those things and know if this person wants warm tones, I know how to enhance that. So for instance, if I have someone at a dark level, and they want warm tones, then I'm going to use the enhancing base when I'm dealing with them, not the cool base. If I want to neutralize it, then I'm going to go to cool. But if they're pulling warm and I want a cool tone, then I'm going to have to tone it to that level, right? So if, let's say they're like a warm 8, 9, okay, and they really want to be on that ashy cool tone, then depending on what color line that you're using, you're going to be able to tone, you're going to be able to tone down. You need to go to that level, either tone on that level or go down. So if she's a level 8, then you need to grab your level 7 and then tone at that level. So if I want to enhance warmth, right? If I want to enhance warmth at a level 8, then I will need to use a level 7, or I could use a level 8, depending on the pigment of the hair. Again, you have to use, not pigment, the density, my bad. Depending on the density of, like, let's say someone who has coarse hair, really coarse hair, and it takes a while for color to penetrate that because the cuticle is so thick. Then in that, I have to know that for one, I've got to allow the time for the lightener to sit on. You have to leave it on for a little bit longer. And if I wanted to enhance that base, I know that, hey, I don't have to fry the hair. I don't have to get that hair to like a level 9, 10 to bring it to a 7, right? I can take that hair to an 8 and I can tone it between a 7 and 8. I can tone it and I can enhance the warmth that her hair is going to naturally pull, right? Why blow the cuticle up more and damage the hair to a level that I don't need it to be at, right? So these are things that we have to know, that how am I going to protect my client and what their end goal is. Because if their end goal is warmth, I know that I don't have to lift it to we won't go back to it, but like for instance, I won't have to lift it to a level 9, 10 if they don't want coolness. If they don't want coolness, I don't have to worry about that. If they want warmth, I know that I don't have to blow that cuticle up and lift it to a ridiculous level just to bring it back down 2 or 3 levels. There's no need in that, and you're wasting time behind the chair, and then it's a domino effect. Okay, so let's talk about and making sure that I get all this done. Okay, let's talk about structure strength of the hair. Okay, and this is going to affect your color corrections, because when you're dealing with color corrections, this is where it's going to start to get a little sticky, because you're going to sometimes you have to break the rules and figure out. And even when you're toning, most people want to use like a straight toner, and they want to put it in a bottle and they just want to blow on everything. But let's be honest, you're going to have those blondes that you're doing global bleaching out, and in those, you're going to have the new zone is going to be super light. You're going to have like not even zone 1, but even like in that mid shaft, that zone 2, you're going to have a little bit of like where it's super light from where you did the previous lighting. And what's going to happen is sometimes we can't control the shift that happens with the new to old hair. And what the newest, like the most recent one that you did, you obviously need to tone it. And you're going to have to address that, because you're dealing with natural pigment. When you're dealing with zone 2, you've already taken the pigment out of that hair. So you're not only now, if you're letting that bleach get on that zone 2, you're then pulling the pigment out even more. So now zone 1 and zone 2, zone 1 can't catch up, and zone 2 has already been blown out. So when you go to tone it and you're taking the bottle, or if you use a bowl, scoop it, you pour it, however you do your stuff, when you do that, you'll see this band, and it's happened to me before, and that's the reason why I'm telling you. You'll see this band of like super silver white, and then you see the zone 1 of the root that has a little bit of, warm in there, and then you've got zone 3 that's just old and damaged and nasty, which is all at the end, which still is still like a level 8, 9. That's not. So you have that really bright band around the head that you're like, how do I get rid of this? This is why you can't just use one toner. You have to address each level that you're dealing with, whatever tone that you're dealing with. And that's where the charging has to come into place. Because when I tone, I don't just take a squirt bottle and just do it all over. I tone the roots, I tone the mid shaft, and I tone the ends. 3 different things. Because you're dealing with those different levels of tone. You're not dealing with a blank canvas. You're not dealing with that. You're dealing with different tones. So you have to tone. That's why you're not getting an even tone when you're toning and you're dealing with the coolness or the warmth or whatever you're trying to get. That's why you get super light over here or super dark at the bottom, or you get too light at the ends and you're not light enough at the top. You can color correct yourself, because sometimes, how many times have we done complete bleach outs and we're like, man, we pulled the color off too soon. The bleach, it's not lifted enough. There's still like a little bit of warmth in there, and we can't just tone everything the same. So what do? You go to your color wheel. Go to your color wheel and you say, look, if I'm dealing with a little bit of like, not even an orange, and you're not quite pale yellow to a 10, but let's say you're in between an 8 and a 9. There's 2 things you can do there. You can do a high lift on the roots at 10, 20 volume if their hair can handle it, and it will lift it and deposit at the same time. So that way, depending on your color line, you can do that. If you are in a situation where you're like, hey, let's just kind of make that root a little bit darker and combat the warmth, if they want coolness, with the right tone. Don't tone a level 8 with a 9 to get it toned down. If you have a level 8 hair, you have to be honest at what that level is. Most color companies, when you buy into their lines, they have like a little shade chart, and you can put it on there, and you can actually put on what the level looks like, so you know what level you're dealing with, and that way you know what color to combat whatever you're dealing with, right? So if I want to neutralize orange, I know that I have to put blue to neutralize it, right? It just goes with the color wheel. So you have to know what you're dealing with, and you can't say, oh, she's a level 9, she's a level 9, and then you tone and she's really not. She's a level 8. So, and then you tone and nothing happens, nothing changes. There's no shift that's going to happen because you're not toning at the correct level. You have to be honest with how you lifted them. And let's talk about for a second formulating and when you're dealing with formulations. For instance, if you were to see someone who posts a formula, and we all seen this, that someone's posted their picture and they say, oh my God, what was your formula? This is a very layered question because there's obviously things that you have to deal with that you're gonna have to change. You can't take that formula that someone's done on that hair and then expect to do the same thing. Because for one, you have density differences, you have the cuticle that's actually different, you have the fine, medium to coarse hair that's gonna be different. If you have someone who has Asian hair, that's gonna be more on the coarser side. You're gonna have to do, your application's gonna be different. There are so many things and layered questions and concerns that happen. So don't think that you can say, hey, this person's got black hair and she made it blonde. Let me go in there and let me mimic hers and let me go ahead and just use her formula. That's not going to work. It's not going to work, and you're going to be let down every time. So this is why, as a hairstylist, color theory is so important. If you learn the foundation of what makes up of a color, then you know at the end of the day, hey, I know how to make that color. If that person wanted silver and I have this, I can't make her like a level 10 silver, but I can make her a level 8 silver. I can make her more like a charcoaly gray silver. I can still get that tone. I just won't get the brightness with the levels 7, 8, 9, 10. You can still get those tones. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the comments below, if you're understanding what I'm saying, say I understand or do whatever your version of that is. Because I want you to understand, I don't want to talk so over and not be practical enough that you'll be able to use this behind the chair. Because if you learn how to do it, I'm telling you, it's going to change your game behind the chair, that you're not going to rely so much on other people's formulas, but then you'll be able to start doing and creating your own formulas based on what the client wants and what the client needs for their hair. Okay, so let's talk about structure strength for a second. If the cuticle is thick and strong and smooth, you know you're going to have to take longer to process those colors. So that's just to know that when you have a cuticle strand, I'm very practical. So if you have let's say this is the cuticle, like the follicle of the not follicle of the hair, but the actual hair strand, you have the cuticle that has 10 layers around it, and you're having to blow that cuticle up to get to the actual pigment of the hair. The actual pigment rests in the cortex. So the cortex, again, that's between, the cuticle and the medulla. And the cortex is what's going to actually bring about the color that you're wanting. You're going to have to know what that cortex, that underlying pigment in the cortex is. And you know that by knowing that, we talked about at the very beginning, that eumelanin is between the black and the brown. Those are your dark. Pheomelanin is all your light colors, anything from red to yellow. So if I know what's present in the hair, if I know that that is present, then I have to know what I'm combating and what underlying pigment is going to be present at the time of me doing the color service. So that way, when I know as I'm lifting, I'm not surprised when I see orange. I'm not surprised when I see red. I'm not surprised when I see those things, because I know that I'm dealing with the underlying pigment that lies in the cortex of their hair. If their hair is thick and smooth and just the best hair ever, and it's coarse and whatever, you know that you're going to have to process those things longer. You're going to have to be lower and slower, because you can't just blow that cuticle up expecting to get that to that underlying pigment. You've got to allow the color itself to process through those layers of hair. So if their hair is thicker and that's what you're dealing with when it comes to the structure, then you know you're going to have to let that sit on longer. So you're going to have to adjust your processing times based on, and your product application, your saturation, all those based on what you're trying to accomplish. If the hair is fragile and it lays into broken zones, color will penetrate so quick and it will penetrate unevenly. So what I do is, when I'm dealing with certain things of the bowl, what I always make sure is that I'm going to put conditioner to slow the toning of it down, especially if I'm trying to combat any type of warmth or coolness. I'm trying to fight something, then I'm going to, things that I'm really not wanting to tone, don't put color there if you're not wanting it to tone yet. Wait till you get everything at an even canvas, and then you can go in there and address the rest of the hair. But if you're dealing with someone who is fragile, and and we all know those people who their hair just is broken and frayed and all that, then you know that it's going to process quick. It's not going to take very long. How many times have you, when you've just done a bleach service and you go and you put the toner on and all of a sudden everything turns gray and you're like, oh my God. And so what are you doing? You're getting you're pumping the clarifying shampoo, you're getting that in there, and then you're adding a little bit of bleach because you left it on there too long because you had to pee, and then you ran to the bathroom and you left them there and you didn't realize that their hair was so porous that it was going to take in that color. Because we know if we're trying to fight something and we're trying to neutralize something, we know, because we know the color wheel, we know the theory is, if we're trying to fight that and that hair is so porous and so damaged, is taking in all that, we're doing everything we can. And the client's like, oh, is that bleach? Girl, no, this is a conditioner, girl. We just condition the hair. You don't tell them what's going on, but you in your mind, you are freaking out because you did not take the porosity in mind when you went to tone them. Send an emoji, a raised hand emoji, if that's happened to you before. How many times have we mixed shampoo and bleach in something and we're like, oh, snap. It's like, it's going to break off. Or, oh, I got to get this off. It's not going to be good. And then the client ends up loving it, right? And they're like, oh my God, whatever you did, break this down. And you're like, this will never happen again. You understand this, right? Because I literally just did a concoction at the bowl to strip your hair of this toner. Literally, that's what we did. But if you think about it, if the cuticle is so spread open and the pigment inside is immediately going to take it because the cuticle is so blown up, what's going to happen is when that color deposits in there, it's in there. And so when you're going in there and you're trying to get that stuff out, you're still going to leave a little bit of tone in there, but not too much, because like, okay, for instance, what you can do, let's go back to our chart here, because this just came to my mind. What you can do is if you have someone who you're trying to combat the warmth with, you can go, like let's say you're trying to combat this warmth, you can go in there and you can add all the missing. So we can go through the tertiary colors. So for instance, let's say they do have porous hair. What you can do is you can present your cool tones, right? But add a little bit of gold to it. So that way it neutralizes the iciness, because there are some people who in their job can't do the silver or can't do the 2 violet zones. So if you're like at a level 10 and you're wanting that, to tone with that purple because it's a pale yellow, even let's say not even a 10, because that's not even realistic. Very rarely do we get people to that. Let's say like a 9, and you're trying to tone them and you want to, you're using the purple, the violet to tone that into a cool zone. I always tend, if you have someone who has damaged hair, always add gold to it because it enhances the natural color and tone of the hair, but I'm also using the purple to combat the crazy warmth. So that way you're getting a nice neutral color. Not a purple, not a violet. You're getting a nice neutral color. So if I want to neutralize blonde, I don't want to take it to a silver, I don't want to take it to that, then I'm going to neutralize that blonde by adding some gold to it, and I'm going to add some violet to it. And in that's going to create this nice soft blonde, and I call it in my chair a believable blonde, because you're not too warm, but you're not too purple or too icy. And it becomes a believable blonde, and it neutralizes any undertones, any underlying pigment that's there that's present in the hair. Funny, this happened to me obviously before we shut down, is when everyone has different lighting in their salon, right? So when you're dealing with that, like I had a client that I knew that her hair did not lift to really what I wanted to do. I toned it to the best the ability that I could, in the situation that her hair was not in great condition. So in that, like literally at the chair, she's like, oh, it's not as bright as I was. I was like, girl, it's these fluorescent lights. When you get home, you're going to see that, and it's going to be so pretty. Girl, you convincing them that was pretty. You know good and well that there was warmth in that hair. You know that you didn't tone that to where you needed to be. We all have had situations like that when you go to blow dry from seeing the hair wet, everyone's hair processes differently and shows color differently based on how light reflects off the hair, based on the density of their hair, based on all those things. So we know that we're convincing them that they like their hair versus them really liking their hair. So in that, we have to take those things into consideration. So at that point, you have to say, do I need to take this person down a tone? Let me go back to my color wheel. Let me go back to color theory, and let me make sure that this person leaves my chair happy. Even if you're in a situation that you're behind or you're whatever, you have to make it right for that client so that way they continue to come back and do that, okay? So fine, medium, coarse hair is the diameter of hair. That's what we're dealing with there. Density, we said that. You're thin, you're sparse, average, thick. Those are those things when it comes to the density, what actually how much hair they have, goes into good consideration. Determining the condition of their hair, so you have to understand the structure of their hair, and then the porosity. How is their hair going to just soak up that color? How are we going to know? Those are all those things that you're going to need to know in a color correction to know, hey, I need to know how much hair they really have, what their condition is, and how much porosity they have to see if it's just going to soak this color up. If I need to let them sit there longer, don't let them sit as long. Those basic things, okay? So that's pretty much it for color theory. Let me pull up here just to see if you have any questions I can answer live really quick, because Bethany will come on around 1 o'clock. So I don't want to kill you with information. So let me get in the group really fast and just see if you have any questions. If I answered the question that you had, just put a thumbs up so that I know that we are good on that. Because the last thing that I want to do is to overdo the information. So let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay. Questions. Believable blonde, love that. Julie. All right. Literally, oh snap. Okay, so lady wants to go to a natural gray. I lift out level 8 with a tone of yellow still left. I put on blue violet. Oh my goodness, it takes the tone so quickly and will not come out, so there will be a bad bluish gray left in the fragile part of the hair. Absolutely. So in that, for instance, okay, so you're talking about someone who wants to go natural gray. We have clients like that are terrible. How many times have we had clients that have box dyed their hair for 20 years, and now that Sharon Osbourne has gone silver and white, everyone wants to be Sharon. We all want to be Sharon Osbourne. Well, we all can't be Sharon because we all don't have Sharon's money to pay to get that done. So we have to do it affordably, and we have to do it at a process that the client's hair can take. Again, density hair matters. The hair that you're dealing with, you have to be familiar with, and you have to know what type of hair you're dealing with. So to lift out to a level 8 with a tone of yellow still left, if you're going to do a blue violet, I would still put a little bit of warmth in there, depending on the diameter of her hair, obviously. But if it's taking in, because the hair is over processed. Because what's happening is when you're going in there and we're doing natural gray grow outs, we're going in there and we're highlighting parts of the hair, right? And then we're still trying to put dimension back in. So what happens is we're putting darker color in, and then we're also doing blonde color, like highlights. So in that, when we go in to do a retouch on that to try to blend that stuff out, what's happening is we're going over those old highlights again. So those are getting a little extra love, and then the other ones are not getting extra love. So then you're having to fight that dark color you put back in to give the hair dimension. So what I would recommend when you're doing that, when you're going through and you're doing the foiling of that, just pull out those pieces that are already light. Just pull them out and just throw them to the side when you're doing a foil. Those are little extra little things that you can do to prevent the hair from being over processed, because when you're doing that and you're leaving hair out in between on a foil job, you're gonna have that hair that's gonna be untouched, that when you go to the bowl to tone, you're gonna have that hair that's gonna look completely different. Right? You're going to have like a level 7, 8, and then you're going to have a level 10 blonde that you just lifted in a foil. So you're not going to be able to use a level 9 to combat some of that warmth that's still in there and do all that. So when you're dealing with her that's going blue-gray, it's because her hair is being over-processed. Add a little bit of gold to the formula to balance that out, and she can still get that nice kind of richness of the tone of the cool, but the gold will actually fill in some of those spots of the hair that's lifted too much, it's over processed, and it'll give the hair balance in its pigment that you've pulled out, the underlying pigment, if that makes sense.
She said thank you, that was my comment.
Okay, cool. Shades GI series, that's awesome for that. Yes, the gold iridescent, I think you're talking about Redken Shades EQ on that. Yes. So let me see. They're saying something is wrong with the color. Okay, that's on. All right, I think that's all of the comments that I can see currently right now. So I will say thank you so much for those of you who have joined. I am so glad that you guys stuck with me in this crazy color theory. I love it because I love color so much. It's what I do. It's my bread and butter in the chair, and it's what I love to do. If you have any questions, if I could have explained something better, just in the comment, just talk about whatever you need, and I'll go back in the comments and I'll make sure to address each of those comments that you have or questions that you have. We're going to have Bethany at 1 o'clock. She's going to come do some face frame highlights for you. And yeah, I'm so excited that you guys joined and glad that y'all are here with me. So awesome that I made some awesome new friends. And if you are watching the replay, make sure you do replay. Make sure you tag your stylist at the comments underneath this video, so that way the stylist who invited you gets the props, and they're going to do some kind of drawing and things like that for people at the end of the virtual boot camp. So we look forward. Stephanie at 5 o'clock is going to do a razor cut too. I don't want to forget that. But it's going to be awesome. So thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you guys later. Have a good day. Stay safe out there.